else hears that same alarm and reacts differently. They rise without hesitation, they sit in silence, they move their body, and they tackle their hardest task before the rest of the world even opens its eyes. What separates these two people, it's not talent, it's not luck, and it's definitely not some hidden gift. The difference is simple discipline. Here's the hard truth. Modern life is built to weaken us. Temptations surround us everywhere. With just a few taps on a screen, we flood our brain with dopamine. Cravings are satisfied within an hour. Entire seasons of shows are ready to consume instantly. We've normalized comfort, and in doing so, we've lost our edge. But ease has never carved out character. Comfort has never forged greatness. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of one of the largest empires in history, could have indulged endlessly in luxury, yet he chose structure. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For him, this wasn't abstract wisdom, it was survival. Leading an empire required mental armor, and that armor was built only through rigorous discipline. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten today. Discipline isn't about pain, punishment, or deprivation. Discipline is about liberation. The more you rule yourself, the less the world can shake you. When you control your reactions, you control your fate. And when you guide your mind, you unlock doors most people will never even see. But here's the secret: few talk about discipline doesn't mean stripping away your humanity. It doesn't mean becoming some cold, unfeeling machine. True discipline, the kind that transforms you, emerges when you understand deeply what matters most and then live in full alignment with it. Think back to the moments you were truly proud of yourself. Was it during a lazy afternoon on the couch? Or was it when you faced a challenge, resisted the temptation to quit, and followed through? That spark, that victory, that's the gift of discipline. And it's worth more than any fleeting comfort. The Stoics didn't craft these ideas from ivory towers. They lived them through fire. They faced invasions, betrayals, grief, and loss, and still stood firm in their ethics. Epictetus, once a slave, became one of history's most respected minds. He taught, "No harm can touch you unless you allow it." That's not just emotional resilience, that's mastery of your own thinking. And once you shape your mental reactions, you shape the whole of your life. In this video, we'll walk through 10 ancient Stoic laws principles that can rewire your mind for discipline. These aren't motivational slogans meant to make you feel good. They are time-tested strategies sharpened over millennia, designed to make you unshakable. Stay with us here on Stoicism Breath, because the moment you choose discipline over ease, you begin building the strongest version of yourself. For over 2,000 years, these Stoic principles have helped ordinary people build extraordinary strength. But here's the truth. Most forget knowledge means nothing without action. You can binge every self-help video on the internet and still remain stuck in the same place. Discipline requires effort. It demands patience. And above all, it calls for the courage to step outside your comfort zone. Your future self depends on the choices you make today. Each moment you choose discipline over ease, you step closer to the person you're meant to become. Each time you run from growth, you abandon that stronger version of yourself. Let's begin with the very first Stoic law of discipline, what I call the morning victory principle. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, and each morning you're given that beginning." The way you start decides how you finish. Win your morning and you win your day. Most people wake up and immediately scroll through notifications. From the moment their eyes open, their minds are filled with noise, opinions, drama, distractions. That isn't productivity. That's surrender, disguised as staying informed. The Stoics saw mornings differently. They viewed the early hours as sacred. Marcus Aurelius didn't start his day reading reports from distant provinces. He started by checking in with himself. He primed his mind for the challenges ahead and reminded himself of what truly mattered. Your morning habits are more than routines. They're declarations of war against mediocrity. If you rise and immediately do something difficult, whether it's physical training, silent reflection, or deep focused work, you're conditioning your brain to prioritize effort over ease. Psychologists call this training your willpower muscle, But here's the key: your routine has to carry personal meaning. Copying someone else's ritual just because it's trendy misses the point. Stoicism always emphasized personal truth and accountability. What works for a CEO might not work for a college student. What suits a single adult may not fit a parent with children. The real strength of the morning victory principle isn't about completing a checklist. It's about staying loyal to the promises you make to yourself. If you say you'll wake up at 5 a.m. and you follow through, you prove to yourself that your word has value. If you commit to reading for 20 minutes and you actually do it, you're telling your subconscious, I can trust myself. Think of the most disciplined people you know. Without fail, they've mastered their mornings. They understand that discipline is like a muscle. It strengthens with use and shrinks without it. They take advantage of the early hours when self-control is sharpest to build momentum. Neuroscience confirms this. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and restraint, is strongest in the morning. As the day goes on and decisions pile up, willpower weakens. That's why saying no to junk food is far easier at 8 a.m. than at 9 p.m. Owning your mornings isn't just about productivity, it's about sculpting your identity. When you rise early and choose challenge over comfort, you begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who avoids effort, but as someone who thrives under it. And that shift in identity is the true victory. When you start your day with clear intention, something powerful happens. Your actions and your identity begin to reinforce one another. The Stoics taught that character is forged not in one dramatic moment, but through daily repetition. Begin each morning with laziness, and soon you become someone who defaults to laziness. But if you begin with willpower, you begin to build a life anchored in discipline. Your morning doesn't need to be complicated or long. It just needs to be consistent and just challenging enough to stretch you. Maybe it's making your bed without hesitation. Maybe it's a short workout. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for. The action matters less than the intention behind it and the commitment to follow through. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. Some mornings will be off. Some days you will stumble. Discipline means you return to your rhythm without self-punishment. The Stoics never saw setbacks as failure. They saw them as part of mastery. This leads us to the second Stoic law of discipline: emotional responsibility. Epictetus, who endured both slavery and hardship, once shared one of the most powerful truths in philosophy. What matters is not what happens to you, but how you respond. Most people go through life emotionally reactive. Someone cuts them off in traffic and they stay angry the entire day. A rude comment at work ruins their focus. A delayed text sends them spiraling with anxiety. That isn't life, that's emotional slavery. The reactive mind believes feelings are automatic, like storms that cannot be stopped. I can't help being mad, they say. This situation is stressing me out. But the Stoics knew better. They taught that between what happens to us and how we respond, there is always a pause. And in that pause lives our greatest power choice. Think of the last time someone upset you, dismissed your ideas, forgot something important, or said something hurtful. It probably felt like your reaction exploded instantly. But here's what really happened. Your brain made a judgment about the situation, assigned it, meaning, and built your emotion on that interpretation. Interpretation is everything. 2 people can go through the exact same experience and feel completely different. One gets fired and falls apart. Another gets fired and sees it as the opening of a new path. Same event, different meaning. That's where discipline becomes essential. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean ignoring them or faking calm. It means owning the story you tell yourself. Ask yourself questions like, is this thought helpful? Is this emotion moving me forward? What would the strongest version of me do right now? Marcus Aurelius asked himself these questions constantly. As emperor, he faced betrayal, war, and loss, yet trained his mind to find meaning in chaos. He once wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within your thinking." This wasn't abstract theory for him. It was a daily practice, a tool for survival. Here's how you can use it. When anger rises, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? When anxiety builds, explore what assumptions you're making about the future. Feelings are signals, not commands. They should guide you but never dominate you. You can acknowledge anger without lashing out. You can feel sadness without surrendering your whole day to it. That is emotional discipline, the second Stoic law. You can feel sadness without letting it steal your entire day. The Stoics practiced this through a mental exercise, visualizing the loss of what mattered most, not to be grim, but to build inner strength. They understood that clinging to things we cannot control only multiplies pain. But when you release your need for a specific outcome, nothing can shake your inner calm. This is the beauty of emotional ownership. When you stop letting others control your mood, you become emotionally independent. Your happiness is no longer tied to someone's tone of voice, the state of the economy, or the perfection of your circumstances. Your peace becomes self-made. This kind of discipline takes practice. Start small. The next time someone irritates you, hold back your reaction, breathe 3 times. Then ask, what would discipline choose here? You'll be amazed at how much power you truly hold within. Here's the truth, you don't always get to decide what happens, but you always get to decide what happens inside you. That's not just philosophy, that's a skill, and it's a skill that can change your entire reality. This brings us to the third Stoic law of discipline, mastery of the now. Marcus Aurelius once advised, stay within the present. That simple line carries a profound truth. Mastery over the present is mastery over life itself. Most people live everywhere except here. Their minds replay past regrets or race ahead into imagined fears. They scroll endlessly, comparing their behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. Physically present but mentally scattered. This fractured attention destroys discipline. A mind without control is like a computer with 50 tabs open, constantly jumping from memory to plan, from distraction to impulse. And with all that noise, nothing gets done well. Worse, it's exhausting. Your brain burns energy, bouncing between thoughts, leaving you drained and unfulfilled without accomplishing anything meaningful. But the Stoics knew the truth. Life only happens in one place, this very moment. The past is gone, untouchable. The future is uncertain, mostly uncontrollable. Right now, this instant is where your true power lives. It's where choices are made, where actions are taken, where meaning is created. Think back to the moments you felt most alive, fully absorbed, deeply fulfilled. Chances are they happened when you were completely present. Maybe in a deep conversation with someone who mattered, maybe during a workout where you lost yourself in the effort, or while creating something meaningful. In those moments, there was no distraction, just full presence. Modern psychologists call this state flow. The Stoics had their own word, prosos, total attention to the now. They knew that when the mind is rooted in the present, clarity sharpens emotions, stabilize, and decisions improve. When your mind stays rooted in the present, your decisions sharpen. But mastery of the now isn't just about doing more, it's about finding peace. Anxiety fades because fear only exists when the mind leaps ahead into imagined threats. Guilt dissolves because regret only lives in a past you can never change. The challenge, of course, is that today's world is designed to shatter your focus. Notifications, headlines, viral clips, every force is fighting to pull your mind in 100 different directions. Entire industries spend billions just to steal your attention. But here's the truth that disciplined people understand. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Where you place your focus shapes the quality of your entire life. When you direct it toward the present, you unlock your greatest power. The Stoics practice this daily by asking one question: what is the most important thing I can do right now? Not later, not tomorrow, right now. That simple question cuts through mental chaos and restores clarity. Another practice was complete engagement. If you're eating, truly taste your food. If you're walking, feel the ground beneath your feet. If you're speaking with someone, give them your full presence. This isn't abstract mindfulness, it's discipline. Each act of focus builds strength, like lifting weights for the mind. And something remarkable happens. Life becomes richer, moments more vivid, relationships deeper. You stop missing your own life because you're too distracted to notice it. You begin to live what the Stoics called ataraxia, a steady calm born from being fully grounded in the now. This moment becomes your training ground. Every time you catch your thoughts drifting and gently bring them back, you've just done a repetition in the mental gym. Every time you choose to focus on what's in front of you instead of a glowing screen, you strengthen your attention muscle. This is the third Stoic law. Now we move to the fourth, turning barriers into breakthroughs. Marcus Aurelius endured one of the most turbulent reigns in ancient history. A deadly plague swept through his empire. Enemies attacked from every direction. Yet in the middle of chaos, he wrote these words: "The obstacle to action advances action. What blocks the path becomes the path." The fourth Stoic law of discipline is this: every difficulty is secretly an invitation to grow stronger. Most people treat resistance as a red flag, but the Stoics saw it as something else entirely, the very weight that forges strength. Most people believe struggle means something is wrong. They face a setback and see it as a reason to quit. But the Stoics held a radical view. Barriers aren't blocks, they're weights. They exist to be lifted. They're your training ground. Think about how a muscle grows. It doesn't develop by staying comfortable. It grows through effort, through strain, through being pushed beyond what's easy. Character develops the same way. Every challenge is a test of who you are. Every hurdle is an opportunity to build grit. Every loss carries within it a lesson in resilience. The reactive mind looks at struggle as an attack. Why me, they complain. Why can't things just go smoothly? But the disciplined mind responds differently. It asks, what is this moment trying to teach me? How can this experience sharpen me? This isn't about fake positivity or pretending pain doesn't hurt. Hardship is real. Grief is real. Failure cuts deeply. The Stoics never denied this. What they refused to do was waste the pain. They extracted wisdom from every wound. Epictetus said it plainly: we don't control what life throws at us, but we absolutely control how we handle it. Don't just talk about your values, live them. When you reshape obstacles into advantages, philosophy stops being theory. It becomes transformation. The way to begin is simple: reframe the challenge. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, how is this helping me? Instead of saying, this is terrible, say, this is training. Instead of I can't handle this, choose, this is preparing me for more. And when you shift your mindset, something profound happens. Fear fades. You stop dreading struggle. You begin to see each test as your path forward. This is what the Stoics called amor fati, love of fate. It's not just accepting life's storms, but embracing them. Take the entrepreneur rejected by dozens of investors. Each no wasn't failure, it was feedback. It refined their message, clarified their vision, and strengthened their resolve. Rejection wasn't the wall, it was the map. Or imagine an athlete struck by a devastating injury. They could give up, or they could use the recovery to grow mentally, to rebuild themselves stronger, to return sharper than before. The injury wasn't the end. It became the forge that built their future strength. Here's the truth. The obstacle isn't separate from your journey. It is your journey. The struggle you're facing right now is shaping the very traits you'll need later. You don't become capable of handling your dream life without walking through the fire that forges that version of you. When you embrace this perspective, everything changes. You stop avoiding difficulty and welcome it as transformation. You stop seeing setbacks as signs of failure and begin to recognize them as preparation for your next level. The Stoics believed in a rational universe where even hidden within hardship lies meaning. And whether you believe it or not, living as if it's true gives you power, because every obstacle becomes the path. The Stoics believed that every event carried meaning, even if hidden. Whether or not you share that belief, acting as if it's true gives you power. Treat every difficulty as a mentor. Become a lifelong student of adversity, and you will never be stopped. This leads us to the fifth Stoic law of discipline: choosing hardship on purpose. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, had a strange habit. Despite his fortune, he would sometimes live as if he had nothing. He slept on bare floors, ate tasteless food, and wore rough garments, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood a timeless truth. Self-imposed discomfort builds real strength. Most people design their lives around avoiding difficulty. They want the temperature just right, the food delicious, the entertainment constant, and the effort minimal. But here's the problem: soft routines create fragile people. When even minor inconveniences feel like crises, you're not thriving, you're hiding. The Stoics knew comfort dulls us. Too much ease weakens the body, softens the mind, and enslaves the spirit. When everything is pleasant, you forget how to be powerful. When everything is smooth, you forget how to adapt. And when everything feels good, you lose the ability to say no. The cure is voluntary discomfort. Think back to every meaningful skill you've ever learned. None of them came easily. Reading was once hard. Your brain had to struggle to decode letters into thought. Driving was stressful at first. Your body had to master complex movements under pressure. Difficult conversations were uncomfortable. Your emotions had to be managed while speaking truthfully. Every step of growth came through tension, never ease. That's the key. If you want to be comfortable during chaos, you must rehearse discomfort. If you want to hold steady when the storm hits, you must practice standing in the rain. If you want to remain disciplined under pressure, you must train that discipline when the stakes are low. Seneca called this practice premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of misfortune. He would visualize losing his health, his wealth, or his reputation, not as a pessimist, but as a warrior preparing for battle. If he could face loss in his imagination, he would be ready when it came in reality. And Stoic discomfort wasn't just mental, it was physical too. They knew the body and mind were connected. Harden one and you strengthen both. That's why they embraced the cold, the hunger, and the challenge. Modern science now supports what the Stoics practiced centuries ago. Cold exposure boosts focus by releasing norepinephrine. Fasting improves brain plasticity. Physical hardship builds resilience through something called cross-stressor adaptation. When you handle one type of stress, you become stronger at handling others. So how do you apply this? Choose the harder path regularly. Take a cold shower instead of a warm one. Walk instead of driving. Push yourself through a tough workout. Skip the easy option and strengthen the muscle of discipline before life tests you. Say no to short-term pleasures. Skip a meal. Sleep on the floor once in a while. These aren't punishments, they're practice. Voluntary discomfort is not suffering for suffering's sake. It's preparation for reality. You're not trying to be miserable. You're training yourself to stay steady no matter the conditions. And here's the paradox: the more you train yourself to embrace discomfort, the less it scares you. The more you stretch your tolerance, the more space you create inside. The less you depend on comfort, the more power you hold. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is not getting everything you want. It's wanting less. When you stop chasing comfort, you break the addiction to ease. You stop needing perfect conditions just to be okay." That is true resilience. Psychologists today call this distress tolerance, the ability to feel pain, anxiety, frustration, or doubt without letting it break you. Most people will avoid discomfort at all costs. But you can sit with it. You can breathe through it. You can remain present while others run away. That is your edge. Begin small. Wake up a little earlier. Do 5 push-ups when your body says no. Eat one meal purely for fuel, not for flavor. The specific task doesn't matter. What matters is that you consistently choose the harder way. Each choice forges inner strength and makes you unshakable. This brings us to the 6th Stoic law of discipline, the mortality mirror. Marcus Aurelius kept a skull on his desk, not to be morbid, but to remind himself of a simple truth. You could die today. Let that guide what you do, say, and think. Most people live as if time is endless. They delay important conversations. They ignore their dreams. They waste countless hours on distractions. They treat death as something distant, something that happens to others far away in the future. But that illusion is dangerous. The Stoics called their practice memento mori, remember death. Not to be negative, but to be awake. Death is the only guarantee of life, yet we live as if it will never touch us. That denial weakens our focus and robs us of discipline. Think back to the last time life reminded you of its fragility. Maybe someone close to you passed unexpectedly. Maybe you faced a health scare, or maybe you witnessed an accident. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Petty fights felt foolish. Delayed dreams felt urgent. Wasted time suddenly looked tragic. That's the power of remembering death. It strips away the noise and exposes what matters most. And here's what's remarkable: you don't need a crisis to reach that clarity. Reflection on mortality is a tool you can use every single day to sharpen your focus, cut the nonsense, and prioritize meaning. When you truly grasp that your time is limited, you begin to live intentionally. Steve Jobs, who faced a terminal illness, once said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." That's not philosophy, it's clarity. When you know time is short, you stop wasting it on trivial things. The undisciplined mind avoids thoughts of mortality because it feels uncomfortable. But the disciplined mind embraces it because it makes everything else sharper. It asks, if I had 6 months left, how would I live? What would I stop doing? What would I finally begin? Who would I speak to with honesty? What impact would I leave behind? This isn't an obsession with death. It's an obsession with living fully. When you know your days are finite, you stop taking them for granted. When you remember that each conversation could be your last, you show up with more presence. And when you realize you are living on borrowed time, you stop letting days slip by unnoticed. The Stoics believed that fearing death was really fearing unlived life. We're not truly afraid of dying, we're afraid of reaching the end and realizing we never really lived. Reflection on death cuts through that fear. It forces us to live deliberately. Seneca once wrote, "Let us examine ourselves and rid ourselves of the faults we've acquired." Each night he reflected, how did I use today? Did I honor my values? Was I guided by purpose? This wasn't self-punishment, it was self-alignment. He understood that his greatest wealth wasn't gold, it was time, and he wanted a return on that investment. So how do you practice this? Begin each morning by acknowledging this could be my last day. Not to panic, but to focus. And each night ask yourself, if I died tonight, would I be content with how I lived today? Did I love well? Did I serve something beyond myself? Or did I waste precious hours on nonsense? This simple ritual transforms your mindset. You argue less because your energy is too valuable. You take bolder steps because time is too short to play small. You become more disciplined, not because you fear death, but because you're determined to truly live. Thinking about death isn't morbid. It's a reminder that life is a one-time gift. It pushes you to treat each day like it matters because it does. It reminds you to live with urgency and clarity because one day you won't get another morning. And when that day comes, your future self, the one lying on their final bed, will either be proud of how you lived or filled with regret. Start making choices now that honor that person. This leads to the seventh Stoic law of disciplined power through imagined loss. Epictetus once gave his students a powerful exercise. When you kiss your child goodnight, silently tell yourself, they may be gone tomorrow. Not as a curse, but as a method to deepen your gratitude. Envisioning loss builds appreciation and mental resilience. Most people assume imagining terrible outcomes only leads to sadness or fear. But the Stoics discovered the opposite. When you mentally prepare for misfortune, you not only become more thankful for what you have, you also become more prepared to face whatever comes. This practice was called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortunes, and it remains one of the most practical tools the Stoics ever gave us. Imagine losing your career, your health, your home, or even someone you love. But don't stop at the moment of loss, go further. Picture how you would respond. What steps would you take? What lessons would you learn? What inner strength would you discover? How would you rebuild your life from that place? This practice does two remarkable things. First, it makes you instantly grateful. When you imagine going blind, your eyes become a miracle. When you picture losing the ability to walk, every step becomes a gift. When you consider losing someone close, every moment with them feels sacred. Second, it makes you mentally tough. If the imagined loss ever becomes reality, you won't be caught off guard. You've already rehearsed your first moves. You've trained your mind to feel the weight and not be crushed by it. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once said, "Everything can be taken from a man except one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That's what this exercise gives you, a choice. No matter how dark life gets outside, your internal posture remains yours. The Stoics weren't doom and gloom thinkers, they were realists. They knew suffering is a part of life, so they refused to let it surprise them. Most pain doesn't come from the event itself, it comes from the shock from unmet expectations. When you practice visualizing setbacks, you shrink that shock. You reduce the emotional hit. You grow flexible. You become the kind of person who bends but never breaks. And here's the balance. Negative visualization isn't about rehearsing devastation, it's about rehearsing strength. You don't just imagine endings, you imagine fortitude. You don't just picture loss, you picture how you'll endure, adapt, and rise again. You prepare instead of panic. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's joy." Everything in life is temporary, our jobs, our possessions, even our bodies. Clinging to them brings pain, accepting their impermanence brings peace. So how do you apply this? Make it a weekly ritual. Choose something meaningful and imagine its absence. Then visualize in detail how you would rise from that loss. Where would your courage come from? What would you build next? What would you hold on to? This practice trains what modern psychology calls your psychological immune system, your inner capacity to bounce back from adversity. When your mind has rehearsed difficulties, you gain a quiet confidence. You become what today's thinkers call anti-fragile, not just surviving shocks, but growing stronger from them. This brings us to the eighth Stoic law of discipline: become the person your goal demands. Epictetus once said, "First decide who you want to be, then do what must be done. Stop chasing outcomes. Start becoming the kind of person who naturally achieves them." Most people approach discipline the wrong way. They fixate on results instead of transformation. They want to lose weight but never become someone who truly values health. They want more money but never turn into someone who makes wise financial choices. They crave better relationships but never grow into someone who shows up with consistency. That's why most efforts fail, because they're trying to force new behaviors while clinging to an old identity. They're battling who they are instead of upgrading who they are. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you exercise, you're voting to be someone fit. When you write, you're voting to be a writer. When you meditate, you're voting to be someone who values clarity and inner peace. The Stoics believed identity is not fixed. You aren't born disciplined or scattered. You're not born courageous or fearful. These are not permanent traits. They're shaped, molded, and hardened through consistent practice. Think about the most disciplined person you know. They didn't wake up that way. They became that way by choosing discipline again and again until it became their default setting. They chose the harder path so often that it became natural. And here's the revelation: when your identity aligns with your habits, effort becomes ease. The athlete doesn't struggle to train. Training is simply what athletes do. The reader doesn't force themselves to open a book. Reading is what readers do. The person who truly sees themselves as disciplined doesn't wrestle with willpower. Discipline is who they are. But changing your identity takes more than wishful thinking. It takes what researchers call identity-based proof. You need evidence that you are the person you claim to be. And that evidence comes only from action, especially the small, repeated actions no one else sees. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Be like the rock that waves keep crashing against. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." He didn't become that rock by declaring it. He became it by living it daily, by checking his intentions every morning and reviewing how well he lived by his values every night. So where do you start? Begin with a question. Who do I want to become? Not what do you want to have, but who do you want to be? Someone brave, someone disciplined, someone creative, someone calm. Your identity is waiting for you to prove it through your choices. Get specific with yourself. Ask, what would the person I want to become do today? If you want to be healthy, how would a healthy person eat lunch? If you want to be successful, how would a successful person spend their evening? If you want to be mentally tough, how would a resilient person respond to stress in this very moment? The answer doesn't have to be dramatic. Start with one action that aligns with your desired identity. Don't try to transform everything overnight. Choose something small, something repeatable. Maybe it's making your bed the moment you wake up. Maybe it's writing one paragraph. Maybe it's walking for 10 minutes. The task itself matters less than the consistency behind it. Every time you follow through, you're casting a vote for the identity you're building. Each repetition is like a brick in the foundation of your new self. Over time, these tiny choices create massive transformation. The Stoics had a word for this: ascesis, spiritual exercises. They knew growth isn't magic, it's a craft. Just like an athlete trains muscle or a musician trains skill, becoming a stronger human requires daily reps. You don't simply wish yourself into discipline, you train for it. You live it until it lives inside you. And here's the beauty: identity transformation doesn't require perfection. It only requires direction. Each time you act in alignment with who you want to be, you move closer to becoming that person. Every decision your future self would respect pulls you toward that future. You don't become your higher self all at once. You become them one disciplined choice at a time. This brings us to the 9th Stoic law of discipline. Build the process, not just the prize. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He understood that true progress doesn't come from lofty goals, it comes from strong systems. Most people are addicted to chasing goals. They write lists, dream big, and map out outcomes. But weeks later, motivation fades, burnout creeps in, and they feel lost. Why? Because they were focused on where they wanted to be, not on how they would consistently get there. They were obsessed with the finish line and ignored the race itself. That's the trap with goals. They're short-term by nature. You hit one and suddenly you feel empty or anxious about the next. You miss one and you feel defeated. Either way, you stay stuck in a cycle of starting over. Setting goals without systems is like hiding clutter in a closet. It may look clean for a moment, but the mess is still there. The Stoics saw through this illusion. They taught that lasting change doesn't come from what you want. It comes from what you repeatedly do. Systems are the path. A system is a set of consistent actions and routines that naturally lead to growth over time. And when you focus on the process, the outcome takes care of itself. Here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. If you want to lose weight, stop obsessing over the scale. Instead, build a system: daily movement, home-cooked meals, and consistent sleep. If you want to write a book, don't fixate on the finished manuscript. Create a system: daily writing, weekly editing, and constant learning. Great outcomes are never the goal themselves. They are the natural byproducts of great systems. That's the beauty of systems. They don't rely on motivation. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Systems, however, are shelter. On the days when you feel lazy, when your energy is low, your system still moves you forward. That is real power. Even Marcus Aurelius had a system. Each morning he wrote down his intentions. Each night he reviewed his choices. It wasn't about hitting a single grand goal. It was about consistent personal growth. The Stoics called this kaizen, steady, continuous improvement. Becoming just 1% better each day might feel small, but over time it compounds into transformation. That's the secret. Results come from repetition, not from bursts of inspiration. So how do you build a system that works? Start by asking, who is the person I want to become? If your ideal self is strong, maybe they train every day. If wise, they reflect or read daily. If focused, they cut out distractions. These aren't goals, they are behaviors. They are the bricks that build character. But here's the key. Keep your system so simple that failure is hard. Don't aim to work out for an hour every day. Start with 5 push-ups. Don't commit to reading a book a week. Start with 1 page. Don't force yourself into 30 minutes of meditation. Start with 3 deep breaths. Simplicity fuels consistency. Even Seneca didn't measure generosity in grand gestures. He built it through small acts of kindness repeated daily. That rhythm, not the size of his giving, made him truly generous. Audit your own systems. What are you doing consistently that pulls you closer to your future self? And what are you doing that silently drags you further away? Design your environment and routines so that discipline becomes automatic. Remember, goals define the destination, but systems determine whether you ever get there. Trust the process and the results will follow naturally. Marcus Aurelius. A man who held immense power, influence, and pleasure at his fingertips once wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It's all in your mindset." This is the 10th and final Stoic law of discipline, the pursuit of virtue above all else, everything else. Wealth recognition, even comfort, is optional. Most people spend their lives chasing external achievements, believing that fulfillment hides in the right job, the ideal relationship, the perfect body, or a bigger bank account. But the Stoics uncovered a deeper truth. Anything outside your control cannot give you real peace. The only thing you truly own, the only thing that can never be stolen, is your character. The Stoics defined 4 essential virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These weren't abstract ideals, they were daily tools, practical and real. Wisdom is the ability to see reality clearly, to make decisions grounded in reason rather than emotion, freeing you from manipulation. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act rightly despite it. A muscle that grows stronger every time you use it. Justice is fairness, the recognition that your well-being is tied to the well-being of others. And temperance is self-control, the power to enjoy life without being ruled by cravings, the ability to endure hardship without collapsing. Here's what makes virtue so powerful: it is untouchable. Someone might drain your bank account, but they cannot steal your integrity. They may smear your reputation, but they cannot take your honor. They may harm your body, but they cannot touch your soul unless you give them permission. Epictetus, born into slavery, discovered that freedom doesn't come from circumstances, but from virtue itself. As he said, no one can harm you without your consent. This isn't about being physically invincible. It's about moral strength. True discipline means making virtue your compass. Instead of asking, "Will this make me rich?" ask, "Will this make me wiser?" Instead of, "Will this make me liked?" ask, "Will this make me more just?" Instead of, "Is this easy?" ask, "Is this the courageous path?" The Stoics weren't monks hiding in caves. They weren't against success or recognition. They simply refused to be ruled by them. They called these things preferred indifference, nice to have, but never worth your soul. As they said, the best revenge is to not be like your enemy. When others act without virtue, do not let them drag you down. Rise above. Stay anchored in your principles. That is the ultimate victory. Rise above. Stay anchored in your principles. Marcus Aurelius, even while facing betrayal, war, and crushing pressure, chose virtue every single day. He once wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not become like the one who wronged you." That is the ultimate victory. When you prioritize virtue, everything else falls into place. You stop fearing failure because every stumble becomes growth. You stop chasing approval because you are grounded in your values. You stop fearing loss because nothing essential, your integrity, your courage, your character, can ever be taken from you. These Stoic laws aren't dusty relics of the past. They are a living roadmap to strength. But here's the truth: knowing is nothing without doing. Epictetus was clear. Don't talk about your philosophy, embody it. These laws only transform you if you live them, only build discipline if you practice them daily. So choose just one. Maybe it's mastering your mornings, maybe it's taking control of your emotions, Or maybe it's acting with virtue when it's hardest. Start there. Practice it for 30 days. Don't fall into the trap of trying all 10 at once. Go deep with one. Progress. Not perfection is the path. You will stumble. You will have off days. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're in the fight. The Stoics never expected flawlessness, only effort. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about realignment, adjusting and continuing forward. Marcus Aurelius reminded us you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's the core of Stoicism, your mind, your actions, your character. That's where true power lives. And this world needs more people with discipline, people who remain steady in chaos, who delay gratification for greater rewards, who hold fast to their values under pressure. By building discipline, you're not just shaping your own life, you're contributing to a stronger world. Every time you choose effort over comfort, you're building your future self. Every time you live these Stoic laws, you invest in a version of you that can handle anything. Over time, the path doesn't end, but it does get lighter. Habits become rhythm, principles become second nature, and the future version of you begins to take shape, steadier, stronger, unshakable. If this message lit a spark in you, hit like, share your biggest lesson in the comments, and pass this to someone who needs it. Subscribe to Stoicism Breath for more timeless tools to help you become unbreakable. And carry this truth with you: you are more capable than you think. You are stronger than you feel. You are more disciplined than you realize. These Stoic laws prove it. Say it with me: I am disciplined, I am strong, I am becoming who I'm meant to be.